We have all been here. You fill out a form, hit submit, and nothing. No change on the screen, no message in your inbox. You are left staring at a frozen button, wondering if you need to click it again. Digital forms act as structured human conversations. If a person speaks to a system and it refuses to reply, they experience the same friction as getting the silent treatment in the physical world. Creating a reliable system requires a pipeline that carries human action towards system understanding. It begins by noticing the click, registering the event, applying a rule, and establishing a verified truth before signaling the next step. Validation sits at the start of that process. Rather than acting as a firewall designed to block people, it functions as a helpful gate, checking that we have the right information so the conversation can move forward safely. Once data passes through, we establish what engineers call state. This is simply the exact truth the system knows to be certain at any given moment in time. An application can execute its code perfectly on the back end, but if it fails to translate that internal state into a human response, the experience remains broken. The danger begins when we hard-code a button to display "delivered" the instant it is clicked. That label might feel reassuring, but it often describes a future the system hasn't actually reached yet. In a dependable system, data must earn its status. We can visualize this through a ladder of evidence, where every rung represents a higher level of verified success. The first rung is received. The data has simply reached our server. It only reaches the second rung, accepted, after the system's business logic verifies that the input is valid for the task at hand. While an internal log might mark a message as sent, we only reach the highest rung when an external provider sends back hard evidence that the message was delivered to its destination. A system should only communicate the specific degree of certainty found on its current rung of evidence. If the database has requested the request, but the provider hasn't confirmed delivery, the user deserves to know exactly where that line is drawn. During periods of high traffic, we use a queue to manage this flow. This holding area acknowledges that work has arrived while separating the initial request from the final processed outcome. Status messages function as the precise interface between internal logic and external expectation. They represent the exact boundary where verified system truth meets the person waiting for a result. But truth alone is not a license to speak. Having a user's contact information, even for a verified transaction, does not equate to having consent to interrupt their day for every minor update. Notification frequency and timing dictate whether a message is helpful or a form of digital harassment. Sending 3 alerts for minor label changes in 20 minutes creates noise that eventually obscures the signals that actually matter. Human attention is a strictly limited budget. In a noisy digital environment, the most accurate and respectful response a system can provide is often intentional silence. Honest systems prioritize protecting that attention. They communicate only when the evidence and the consequence justify the interruption. Conflicts are inevitable. You will encounter moments where an external service claims a message was delivered, but internal logs show a failure. Resolving these conflicts requires the mindset of a failure detective. Instead of guessing at the cause, we map the journey backward from the visible symptom, scanning for the moment the path diverged. We look past the final crash to find the earliest piece of missing evidence. As seen here, the magnifying glass finds the gap between the attempt and the expected event. Finding that gap allows for a targeted repair. It completes the loop, moving from human action to verified truth to system action, and finally to a recovery plan for the moments when the path breaks. Builders can keep this loop honest by returning to 5 first principles questions. What human problem exists? What must be true? Which uncertainty should be solved first? What evidence would change our mind? And where must human judgment remain in control? Answering those questions changes the outcome of the initial click. The user no longer encounters a silent vibrating button. They interact with a stable interface that acknowledges their effort and confirms the truth. A dependable application makes reality visible. It respects human uncertainty and leaves the next step in the light.